And if you do want a copy of this, I'm going to put an email in the chat box, and you can request it. But we'll go ahead and send it out to all of those who've clicked through to this link today. So with that, Tammy, I'll turn it over to you, and I'm going to turn myself on mute.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for inviting me here today. And if you all, someone could just let me know, or Mark, if you could let me know that you actually see the screen and can hear me clearly, because I know we have well, it looks like over 80 plus people on the call today, which is great. So I just want to make sure that you all can see the screen as well as you hear me clearly.
We can. So everything transferred over correctly, and we can see your screen, and I can see your image too. So that's good. And okay. Everybody should be good.
Well, I don't know if that part is good. Okay, great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome. I see there are others that are still joining. I am a person who loves to be in front of people, live bodies. And so, our whole world now, of course, is virtual. And Mark, I can get long-winded because I'm real passionate about procurement and I love it and all. I have enough time to really ask questions, get some questions, answer some questions from people. I know it's a large audience. So just, you all be mindful if you hear questions that if it's your question already asked that you think about another question, okay? So thank you again. And I'm so happy that you all are here. I know a lot of people are from probably all over the country. I'm here in Georgia, as Mark is. And so weather is beautiful here today in the Atlanta area. And so it's like, well, why are we sitting inside, doing an RFP? Well, because as you just heard, Mark talked about the money. And that's really, at the end of the day, that's what people are go after contracts for, is because they would like to, of course, win. And so hopefully today I'm able, this is just a really, really, really generic, general type of presentation I've given, but because I want to get more direct questions. So as I go through this document, just keep in mind, this is very, very high level, but in terms of specifically what you may have, something you may be currently working on or looking at, then we'll entertain. I'll be happy to answer those questions more directly for you, okay? So today's presentation is about writing the right RFP response. And of course, I highlighted that word right, R-I-G-H-T, because many people, after they've written an RFP response, sometimes they'll allow me to see what they have written. They'll say, oh, can you take a look at it? And sometimes it starts as simple as the cover page. I never even get beyond, the other pages. I'm like, well, wait a minute. You don't have this part right. So no wonder they weren't too inclined to look at that information. So nevertheless, here we go. So I want to start with talking about the word prepare, because I think that's really, I know that's really key. It's key for me, it's key for you. I write, actually I have an RFP that I'm working on for a client that's due tomorrow. And, you have to prepare yourself. It's just no way. You can't get around that part of it. I've tried, so I've made all the mistakes that you all have or will make, and I've already done it. And at the end of the day, it's nothing like preparation. You just can't get around it. So we're going to take a look at these letters of the word prepare, and we're going to dissect that. But I want to make sure that you prepare to win. Okay, so that's what we're talking about here, is that we're talking about preparing you to win. Before opening the RFP, I should have highlighted the word before. Again, it's about preparation. You have to really put yourself in a place of where you are ready to win this particular contract, this particular bid. So for me, it's going to require, for some of you, it may require your coffee or your tea. It may require some meditation before prayer, whatever it is, because, this is a serious matter. If you take it seriously, you will win. But if you're just, saying, oh, yeah, it's no big deal, I'm just going to go ahead and, try to see what this is about and throw my name in the hat, well, you're not taking it as seriously as you need to. Remember, many contracts opportunities are 3+ years, 5 years. If you're at some of the major airports like Atlanta. If you're talking about a concession contract, that's a 13-year significance. So at the local level or the county level or government, whatever it may be, they're really significant. And so it does require some preparation, not some, it requires a lot of preparation. I like to get into my quiet spot. Some of you, if you're going to exercise before, do your yoga, whatever it takes to get your mind clear. Really, that's the whole point of it, that you really want to have your mind clear before you begin. Okay. So we're going to take a look now at the next letter, and that second letter is review. So when you start this process, as many of you, because you're all business owners, entrepreneurs, the first part is that you review. Now, when you're reviewing, chances are this is something that either you've come across or it's been sent to you because you have registered on a vendor's list. So it may have come by way of email to you, or a colleague may have sent it to you, a friend may have sent it to you, any number of ways in which this may come. So chances are, sometimes, you may be out there researching on your own, and that's usually a small percentage. Most of the time, it's coming at the most inopportune time, meaning you're already doing something at the time when you receive this information. So what I would say, the short to this is, when you get it, or when you get in your space, actually take the first thing that you really want to take a look at, besides the due date, of course, you definitely want to look at the due date. And I do suggest that you give yourself, if this is your first time writing an RFP, you want to give yourself 30 days or more if it's your first time. If it's multiple times, you have been doing this and you've submitted a couple of different times, then you can get away with a little bit shorter window of time. But even with that, I would say, if you're not the person who's going to constantly be doing this, you really need more time. Time is really key to this process.
So Tammy, I hate to interrupt you. There are getting some requests about maybe making the screen a little larger. I don't know if you can do that on
Oh
your
yeah,
computer with a
sure.
full screen. There we go. Sometimes you can do that with a full screen option, is what some
Is
folks who got more technology are telling us right now. So, but not to
is that a
call.
little better? Is
Waiting
that
for the audience. A little better. I can see better. And they may be able to also control that. It's actually, they're saying, no, it's worse. So, I think what they're asking.
oh, sorry.
Sorry. And making it, I think there's a full screen option there. Let's just see here. We're not going to dwell on this too
Sure.
much. Close the download bar on the bottom. Somebody's typing in some notes to help us out technology wise.
Okay.
We're all working on those together. Down these to the right of the plus. Okay. You see over at the very top, on the right hand corner. There we go. And then you can
Is that better?
on the screen bar. That's it. Yeah. To right of if you look at the plus mark right after the window that's opened, at the very top of the bar, not there, but over next, up even higher on your screen there. I apologize.
Okay.
Up there,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
right
yes.
there.
Okay.
There we go. That should do it, I think.
Is
And
that
you should. Well, I thought that would do it there. You have a little.
I thought this would have been better.
Okay, so we're good. I think this is better, and they can actually expand their own screen as well. And we're going to make that slide deck available afterwards. Okay.
Yes,
Everybody's good.
absolutely.
Okay, thank
Absolutely.
you. Sorry, not to
Okay.
interrupt too much.
No, no problem. So I hope, is that a little bit better for the majority? I hope. Okay. All right. So as I was stating about the review portion of it, is that you really want to get into the scope of work, or the statement of work. It's known as the SOW, S-O-W. You can do that as a quick view. So if you're busy, then definitely you want to take a look at that first. And you want to be able to just get a glimpse and say, okay, then who, what, when, where, how, and why. If you can answer those questions briefly, that gives you a pretty good idea of if this is a fit for you or not. So definitely taking a look at who is it that they're wanting for this, that's really key. Who is it that they're wanting? What exactly, what is it's going to give you the description. That's what your statement of work, your scope of work will define for you. What specifically are they looking for? What services, what products? Is this a janitorial contract? What is it? What building? Of course, when is the timeline? You're looking for when is this project to start? Because hey, it's spring now, getting ready to go into summer. Now that people are getting vaccinated, I imagine some of you are going to start traveling. Is this going to be a good time for you? So you have to put all those things in place. Of course, where is the work to be performed? We're still in this virtual world. So is it that virtually you can do it where you are, wherever that may be? Or do you have to go, if it's military based, do you have to go on their site, on their campus? Does it clearance? Those are things to know, especially about military. Even if it's some hospitals, you may have to, still receive clearance badges, things of that nature. So you want to take a look at that. So covering your who, what, when, where, how, and of course, why. Why is really key, because you need to know why does the agency, whoever the agency is, whether county or federal government agency, your local government, whoever it is, the city, why do they need this particular service, or why do they need the products? Because that's really the big portion. People get caught up in the who, what, all of that. Really, the major part of this is why do they need it? Because that will help you when you're getting ready to write this part of it, to understand why they need it, because you need to be able to answer that. Okay. Next letter that we want to take a look at is you to exam. All right. And that's letter number 3 in prepare. You want to examine all of the documents. You need to become familiar with any additional information. You want to be able to look at the forms and have a clear understanding if there are forms that are part of the document of the RFP that you need to complete. You are, in some instances, you may, if you're at the local government, times there immigration to be completed. You may have to have some forms notarized. So you want to take a look at what exactly are the documents that need to be completed by you and get those out of the way. The only one that you will not be able to get out of the way, of course, will be the cost worksheet, or when it comes to the pricing. And you would leave that until a little bit later on so that you have time when you're in your quiet space to really go over the cost aspect. But the other forms, certainly, a lot of them are just, basic information. If you're talking about federal government, of course, you have to already be registered in SAM, sam.gov. And so making sure that you're already registered for the federal government, or making sure that all of the information is already updated. That's key, okay? Now, for any of your other documents, again, making sure that you have your other documents already prepared, filled out. I would highly suggest that you do not write in anything, even if it says that you can write in with a blue or black pen. I really use everything. I type everything, or, on the computer, of course, but put everything in because it's clear. And if you're at the local and state government level, sometimes when they're asking for your paper copies, it could be various people that are actually going to be looking at those paper copies. And so it's becomes difficult and challenging your writiness. The only thing that you may want to do, of course, is the signature. But even for that, a lot of times I use electronic signature when acceptable. But if your RFP, your response is one that's electronic, of course, online, and then that makes it a whole lot easier. But still, for the local level, a lot of your local government agencies typically have where you're still having to submit paper copies, believe it or not, even in this pandemic. So that's the part of the exam, okay? The next part is your plan. And with your plan, you really want to have, this is the 4th letter of our prepare. And so with your plan, you want to make sure that you have your outline and your flow. And this is when, it said, write the vision, make it plain. Well, you need to have this plan written out. I know many of us, we're so comfortable now with our laptops and, electronics and all, and that's great. But I still suggest that you put pen to paper. And here's the reason why. When you have, if it's, and again, this is not if it's electronic, but if it's paper submission, a lot of the RFPs will stipulate how many pages that they're looking for. Okay, so if they're looking for, they may say we're looking for no more than 25 pages as part of the response. If you write it out, you now can, so 35 pages cover. So have your cover that's not counted. Then it will ask, of course, they'll ask for your, it'll ask for an outline. It'll ask for you to put your sheets there. Some will ask for a transmittal letter. So you start putting your pages together, get your loose leaf paper, whatever, and just start putting that paperwork together. And so that you can see, okay, this page is going to be my cover. Then I'm going to go ahead and have my table of contents, because many of them ask for the table of contents. Then you're going to have your company profile. A lot will ask for background and your company profile. And then into, some of the forms, they may ask for your referrals, your references, your past performance history. Some of those may be forms that you submit, but others, where you have to fill it in, or you even have to have your referrals, your references fill it in. So that's why the time factor is so important, because some of the things that are required may not involve you, but actually involve others, such as having it notarized, the affidavit, or having your references. I just completed one for a client, and another one I'm working on, and it was, it's amazing to me how they have so many different variations when they're asking about references. So this one was pretty unique in that it was a form, and it actually pages. So that was it. And they had them to circle, if the work was excellent or whatever. It asked the question, but there were 2 pages to the total 7, 2 of the 7 pages that you had to submit to the reference person, the person who you're going to ask to do the reference, that you had to actually complete that top portion for them. And then they asked the person, and they looked for that person's signature. And in this particular case, they asked that the references go back to you, the person who's going to submit as the contractor. But I have had others where you have to submit it and send it to the office. So you really want to make sure that you allow for enough time for that. You also want to make sure with your references that you are getting people who are responsive, and giving them a courtesy call. Everyone's busy, people may be on vacation or whatever, may be going to travel, whatever it is. And so you have to be mindful of that. And they're getting a lot of emails. We're all business people and people are busy. So you want to make sure that you allot for that kind of time as well. Okay. So that's all a part of that outline and that flow. I harp on really about those references because that is just so key. The agencies, the government, the contracting officers really want to know that you've done this work before. So you want to have apples to apples in terms of comparison, not apples to orange. I mean, in some cases, you're not going to be able to hit the mark exactly, but you want to come as close as possible. So when you're talking about your references, when you're talking about your performance history, you want to line it up through your outline to make sure that you are actually giving as close as possible to what that particular entity or agency is looking for. Okay. The next is about your, this is letter number 5 in prepare, and it's how you're going to address as well as provide the approach. A number of entities will ask for the technical approach. So you have to, it helps if you have something written out already as kind of your template on the technical approach. But making sure that you address all questions, especially when you talk about on a number of the electronics, on a number of the federal government, there are some questions that are asked of you, state level as well. There are questions, sometimes there's a mandatory score sheet or mandatory 2 parts, a mandatory work and a mandatory sheet, and complete all, make sure you're addressing all of the questions to the best of your ability. In some instances, I have somewhere, you start looking at the questions and then realize, oops, I don't have that, I don't have that, I don't have that. So that may not be the opportunity for you, but make sure that you are reading it carefully, because our eyes often deceive us. I have seen it time and time and time and time again, as I'm working with so many business owners, and so I'll give you an example of how our eyes deceive us. Many times when I'm reading the RFPs, many times as I'm reading it, the information, it will state, please indicate if you are a woman-owned company, if you are a small business, if you're a veteran, or any number of those. Okay, it's simply asking for you to check the box, or to do, if it's a drop down, to click on the drop down. I will often have people who will say, oh my goodness, I don't have that certification, I can't do this. And I will say, without even looking at the RFP, a lot of times, if someone's calling me or texting me, and I'm like, it didn't, I said, does it say certify? And you're like, yeah. And I said, are you sure? And 9 times out of 10, 8 times out of 10, we go back and look, it doesn't say certified. It's just asking, are you a woman-owned company? Are you a small business? Are you a veteran? Are you? It does not say the word certified. So again, our eyes deceive us. And so it's really, really important that you look carefully at the questions, that you read it and make sure that you have a clear understanding of the question that's being asked. The other part is that it's really critical while you're addressing the questions that you only answer what is being asked of you. It goes along lines with our eyes deceiving us, but only ask. I mean, a number of times I have people who just give way too much or too little. I'd rather go on the side of giving not enough rather than giving way too much, because you have to look at the entire document and you have to understand what's being asked, and then perhaps you can back to if there are some additional questions that point to the same information. Your technical approach is very, very, very important. When you're in, say, the IT field, all of it, construction, for our physicians, all of that, they're always going to want to know, well, what is your approach? What is your technique? How are you going to create this website for us? One of RFP had created a couple of weeks ago for a client. It talked about how were they going to rebuild this website? They wanted also to know the timeline. You had to give a timeline. They also asked for samples. So all of that is a part of your approach and your technique, and you have to be prepared for that as well. Okay. Here we have on the on letter number 6 is about rereading. You have to reread this entire document, and now with your information included. Okay. So the first time, remember at the beginning when I talked about reviewing it, you're reviewing it with just the information as it's presented to you. What's really key now is that you need to reread this entire document with your information in it. So this means after you have now inserted your information, that you're going to reread everything, and you need to make sure that it flows. You need to make sure that it makes sense. And I say also that if you have someone else to read it, someone who perhaps is not in your industry, making sure that it makes sense to them. Wow. So it should be clear enough that in your document, it should be clear enough that if someone is outside of your industry, if they're reading it, that they get a good understanding of what it is that you're responding to. Okay. And then the last part, of course, is that you need to execute. You need to go ahead and deliver. You need to submit this bid. You've worked hard on it. You may have stayed up all night. Or you spent, countless hours or weekends or whatever it is, but you really need to make sure that you deliver and that you submit on it, even if you do not have all of the information. It is best to submit than not at all. It is, I'm going to repeat that again and again. It is better to submit than not submit at all. And here are the reasons why. Who knows, you may be the only one or two candidates that show up for this particular opportunity, whatever it may be. So it's really in your best interest to show. What happens is if you should show up and there are not a lot of other people who submit on this particular bid, at that point in time, the contracting officer, especially if your amount and that, the cost factor, that comes into play, of course. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think Mark has a class that he talks about cost. But on the cost part of it, if you are the lowest bid, and maybe you have some documents, maybe you don't have all of the, all the qualifications, but you're the lowest bid, that contracting officer will probably still reach out to you, will email you, and even, send an email stating, I know they'll thank you for submitting the bid. When you get that inquiry, also, that means that chances are they're looking at you. So you're submitting the bid. They'll say, thank you for submitting the bid. And we noticed that you left off XYZ. Could you send that? And you have until 5 o'clock tomorrow evening to get it there, or, some other time. And so I've had that to happen more times than not. And again, it is in your best interest. When the contracting officer is sizing up or determining how they're going to look at the bids, lowest price is stacked up first. So say if there are 25 bids or responses that are received. So the contracting officer, now, unless they're saying lowest bid is not, they're the number one thing, but in most cases it really is. And even if it's not the highest point value in the evaluation process, so they're going to stack it up for the lowest price bids. And so out of 25, you may get the 5, the 5 that are the lowest. And you look at the first candidate. The first candidate bids something like, what do we say? We'll say 50,000. Okay, 50,000 to complete this entire project. And this is a 5-year contract, so 50, they may have incremental increases the way, which is acceptable. And so that's the first one. Well, they look through the first one and the person has all of the information, with the exception of they did not provide, they asked for 5 references, and 3 of their 5 hit the mark. Okay. So 3 of the 5 hit the mark, and they're like, okay, that looks pretty good. And plus their cost is pretty good. So that's candidate number 1 to start, only because they were the lowest. So that's number 1 that they've reviewed. They then go to candidate number 2. Candidate number 2 submits. Candidate number 2 pricing is just a little bit more than candidate number 1, but that candidate also provided all of their references, and their references really look really good. Okay. Again, we're just at the point of where we're looking. We haven't made any calls. We haven't substated, haven't verified anything. And then they look at candidate number 3. Candidate number 3 is just a little bit more, but they're all kind of these 3 are all in the same window in terms of their pricing. But candidate number 3, all 5 of their references look really good. They're matching apples to apples, right? Candidate number 3, apples to apples. They asked for counseling services, they look really good on paper, because at the end of the day, it's your paper. It's like a resume. So your paper is speaking for you. And so they're looking great on paper. So now candidate number 3 was not the lowest, but candidate number, in terms of bidding, the cost portion of it, but candidate number 3 really looks really, really well. And so with that being said, now they're going to verify those references and see if that checks out. They're going to look overall again at the performance history. And then they're going to go back to the technical approach to make sure that all of that lines up. All of it lines up. And so it looks like candidate number 3 may actually be their person. But again, it comes down to the technical approach, and it comes down to those references to see what the references date. If the agency whether it's the state, the local level, county, or federal government, if it's stated during the evaluation process that pricing is number one for them, and pricing is, they're going with the lowest price, then chances are they're still going to go back to candidate number one. But remember, I said they may have asked candidate number one to send in the information, additional information. And if candidate number one does that with the lowest price and is able to send in any documentation that was required, then candidate number one will likely be submitted, provided, again, that the references check out, provided the technical approach meets what the agency is looking for. Okay. So that's, kind of, again, this is high level. This is my contact info. Just a minute, I really want to get to where I can see you. And so I can answer questions more specific, more direct. So I really did not want to give this presentation too many pages to it, because I would prefer that I can answer your questions more directly. Okay, so with that being said, I am going to stop for a minute, stop the share, if that's okay with you, Mark. Hopefully everyone, and of course, okay, and hopefully everyone, in this day and age, we don't have to write everything. If you have your phone, if you can do a quick click there, you'll have what you need now to go back, so that I have an opportunity to see all of you and to answer your questions. Okay.
And so we're going to do that in an orderly fashion, because I imagine there's going to be some questions. So we've got the expert here, and that's what GovDirections is trying to do, making sure you have access to subject matter experts. But one of the first questions I see in the box there, and you can either type your question or you can raise your hand. That's under the reactions. Okay. And this is going to be recorded as well. So those of you who are on a time deadline, you do have permission to step out. We'll have this available to you. But the first question here is, how do we talk about, you mentioned about price range for the contracting officer wants to pay for, so that you don't price yourself out of an opportunity. And so that, I think that's a good question.
Yes.
That's the one that we all fear. We always want to get that contract at that price, but are we willing to walk away from it?
Right.
What's your thoughts on that, Tammy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, pricing is definitely key to the whole thing of winning, right? So one of the things that I would suggest and highly recommend is that for those of you, particularly on your local bids, city, county, state government, that whatever database that you acquire the information in, that usually you can find the award information as well. So one of the key things is that you want to determine to look at language to see, is this the first time that the RFP has come out, or is it that it's one that has been out before? Because if it's been out before, chances are the award information is there. Now you can ask for, open records if you don't readily see it, but in most cases, you should be able to see it unless it's archived. Sometimes it's really old. Remember, contracts, if it's not the first time that it's a 3-year contract or a 5-year. Now, if it's a 1 year, 1 year later, you should readily see the award information. If it is a 3-year contract or 5-year, you should still be able to see that. It may be archived, so it just depends, but you can look for that. On the federal government, you do have tools, and I believe Mark has within access within his organization as well, that you'll be able to get to where you can see the award information. But if you're looking in beta.sam.gov, you can also see award information that's posted, and that information is readily available. Again, when you're reading that RFP, you want to read it to see if this is the first time, if it's been awarded before. If this is the first time, you have no information. Now, the agency may indicate, sometimes agencies, especially at the local government, they're receiving a grant, and that's how they're able to put that contract out there. So if it's a grant, then that information at the local level will also be available through the city council records. So if you look at your local city council, if you're bidding on something at the local level in your city, then you can look at the city council records, which would discuss in terms of budget And even if there was, someone who may have been awarded that contract before. Of course, you have pre-bid meetings. Sometimes those are mandatory pre-bid meetings to attend, and we're speaking outside of the federal government. But now, with the pandemic, a lot of that is virtual, of course. And so you're asked to attend these pre-bid meetings, and some are optional, some of course are mandatory. And there you can get a good idea. Now, I would say that when you're on most RFPs and all, there's a point of where it's asked, where it talks about questions, if you should ask questions. My response, I'm not the person. I do not ask questions. I tell my clients, do not ask questions. Allow others to ask the questions, but you do not. What you look for are the answers. Don't ask the questions because it is a legal document. It's already gone through the agency's legal department. And so take it for what it's worth, that whatever is there is what is meant to be there. Because if you're asking questions, guess what? The responses have to go back out publicly. So now you're giving your competition the heads up. They may not have thought about that question. I'll give you an example. A couple of summers ago, I was working on a RFP, and as I was reading it, I was thinking about that the way that it was written, it seemed like it's something that a nonprofit organization could apply to. Now, my client is a for-profit business, but it seemed like it was in the food industry, talking about summer camp meals. And so, I was thinking, this sounds like something a nonprofit organization could apply to. So I'm sitting in the room, and it was a pre-bid meeting, a mandatory pre-bid meeting. And I didn't ask the question, but someone else did. And when they asked the question, the contracting officers were all seated together, and they looked at each other like, we didn't think about that. So I said, well, we'll get back. They told everyone in the room, we'll get back to you on it. So sure enough, they did. They got back to everyone. It came back as an addendum. And what did that do? As a result, more people now responded to the RFP. So there are certain things, just hold it. If you don't see it, just again, reread the document, and you answer the questions, you respond to the best of your ability based on what is already there. Okay.
That's some excellent advice, Tammy. Although I found something that we don't necessarily agree on, because I always say, ask a question, think of something. So I don't know. That's why I get that. But I do understand what you're saying. You do want to keep it close, and I even took some notes of some of the things you said today about, how always respond. Because I was looking at one the other day, 24 companies downloaded a bid, but only 3 individuals responded.
Yes.
But I bet you there was 10 people who didn't respond because they thought all 24 were going to do that, and it was going to be too competitive. But they only had 3 responses, and they went with a company that was not even in their own area. So it was kind of
and that happens so often. That's why I say it's best for you to respond than not. I have oftentimes, I remember, participating in one with a painting. It was a painting contract for a school, and there was a mandatory pre-bid meeting. The room was packed because it was a large school system, large school district. So the room was packed, mandatory meeting. And at the end of the day, it was kind of a similar scenario. I think only 5 companies, but they had to 20 contractors that showed up, but only 5 actually submitted. And I'm happy to say my client did win, but nevertheless, it came down how we were able to win, because I did the research to determine that pricing and was able to see the pricing from the previous bid. Okay.
You did mention earlier about, we do a course on costing and cost analysis, and what I call past performance research, because it is really important that you do that whenever you're going to go out for a bid. And I think you made some very, really good points there on what you recommended in terms of making sure you could go in there and read the city council budget at a local government level. Everything is done in the sunshine, so that information is out there. But usaspending.gov, at the federal level, is a little harder. But at the usaspending.gov, they have a database. It's probably one of the best databases in the world, if you ask me. It's easy to use, and for all practical purposes, that's you have to get used to it. But you can go in there and you can pull recent awards, and we actually publish them on GovDirections for 30 days. But this is so much volume that it can bog down our site. But over 1.92 trillion spent just this last year. But you can go in there and look at every single purchase order, every single contract. And I was just showing this yesterday to somebody on how to price out park attendant. But we do that session so watch out for that. And it's in our GovSchool focus session. So
yeah, and that's a great one. It's a great one. It's very necessary. Great.
And so we have some more questions here. They're coming up now. Let's see here. Next question is, a few governments, I don't want to miss anybody. Let's see. Are all awards via RFPs? How do we respond if it's not via a formal RFP process? And then another one kind of goes along with that. A few government agencies are issuing RFIs, requests for information.
Requests for information, right. So you will have at the federal level, you will see pre-solicitations. You will see RFIs, requests for information, where the contracting officer is trying to determine. Now, on the pre-solicitations, those are good to respond to because you can actually sway, influence the contracting officer's decision on how they're going to write this particular the actual solicitation. So do respond to pre-solicitations. Your federal government contracting officer, they're needing to know if you're a veteran, if you're a woman-owned company, small business, so that they're just not putting it as a general solicitation for everyone to go after. So it's in your best interest to respond to a pre-solicitation, just to let that contracting officer. And remember, this is an opportunity for you to showcase your business. So waving your hand, highlighting, making that contracting officer aware that you exist, because that's the only way they're going to know is that you now exist is if you participate. Okay.
And going back to what you just said too, there, one thing I do when I'm sometimes I serve as a subcontractor, because you mentioned earlier about having sort of self-certifying. And so I operate on the side as a consultant. So I have a small business designation in one county. And so sometimes I'll go to sessions that I'm not even going to be, I would never be able to bid on it by myself. But I go there simply to introduce myself and then potentially say, I'm here at a pre-bid meeting. Used to you'd go in person, but now even online. And I'm interested in serving as a subcontractor. And so that's almost a way to kind of respond without having to respond to the RFI, letting people know that you're involved in that too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Mark, and I'm total agreement with you, but I'm always in it to win it. So with my folks, I'm always pushing them as the prime, and to make sure, and to be honest, that's just the space that I've had the success in helping clients win the contracts is going after, because it's about trying to match them as close as possible to what is needed. And I can't stress enough, can't tell you guys that if you hit the mark, fill out the forms, if you're looking at something and matching it to apples, you're going to come pretty close. A lot of times, I will be honest with you, and I've literally for the last 10 years have been doing this, this is what I do consistently. I have not missed anything in terms of from a paperwork standpoint. Where we have missed out on is in terms of the pricing. My client will miss the mark on the client. Now, if it's ones where it's been bidded before, we don't miss the mark there. Usually it's just someone may have underbidded, gone just a little bit lower than us. But if it's already there, then I'm spot on. We get those consistently. If it's something that's totally new, it has never been out there before for that particular agency, then I typically go and search for where it may have been done in other agencies, counties, things of that nature, so that I get an idea of what the pricing would look like. What should that pricing look like? So if it's totally new, I still get an idea of at least the ballpark. But in terms of overall the responses, there's nothing wrong with the response. Another thing on responses too is that, I see people really go all out with marketing type response, flashy and colorful and all. That's great, but it can become expensive. Unless that's your business. Now, if you're applying for something, if you're submitting rather for something that involves website and marketing, yeah, you want to do the bells and the whistles because you want to show them that you can definitely do that type of work. But if it's janitor, if it's anything else, plain black and white is always best. Just give it plain and simple. Now, because if they're reading and if it's, a lot of documents and the contracting officers are reading for a lot of people, you want to not have it where it's all text, text, text. So what I will do is for my references, I'll put it in a nice little table or a box, unless they provide the form. But if they don't provide the form and I'm having to do more of the writing, then I will actually put a box together, a table, kind of formatted differently, just so that the eyes get a different, view versus just constantly looking at words, words, words. Okay, and graphs help. You also have a number of the RPs will ask for an org chart. So having your team. Now you'll say, well, I don't have a team. It's just me. Well, you better get a team quickly. So you can still submit. And what you would do in that case is that you, of course, will have yourself as part of that and any other partners, colleagues that are engaged in this RFP process with you or that will be doing some of the work. What I encourage you, and this is, for everyone, the quickest way to grow your business is for you to work on the business and not in the business. And the same thing applies to the contracts. You really want to sub these contracts out. I know we want the money, but you will not be able to grow your business if you're doing all of the work yourself. So I had one of clients many years ago that's always one of my, when I'm out doing speaking engagements, really stressing to people about building your team and having others do the work. Not that you have to bring on employees, but that you're subbing the work out. So this couple that I was working with, husband and wife, they were consultants. And so they said, it was my rule about build your team. And we even put together the names of the team. I even had them to get the resumes of individuals so it was lined up. They won their first contract and, I called them back and it took a minute, but they came back. And so when I saw them in person, when I saw them, they looked totally different than when we first initially met. And I said, hey, what's going on with you guys? And just letting them talk. And they were like, yeah, we're good. It's busy. We're really busy. And I said, well, that's great. So we went through and I said, well, tell me about your contract. So he told me about contract number one. And contract number one, these were ones that they were awarded. So contract number one, and I said, oh, great. Who's working that project? And it said, oh, we had, capacity. So we thought we would do that one. I said, okay, great. They had another contract. Okay. So who's working that contract? Well, the wife said, well, I'm doing that because that's more my area of expertise. I said, okay. Contract number three. I said, okay, who's working this contract? The husband said, I'm working that contract. So contract number one, they both are working. Number two, the wife is working. Number three, he's working. They had 5 contracts and they had not engaged anyone on their team. So when I saw them, we were talking, they were constantly yawning. They were exhausted because they were working all of this just themselves. And, as a small business owner, I know that we're more inclined because it's our area of expertise. It's our baby. We want to hold it close. But at the end of the day, they were burning themselves out. And so I said, look, guys, you guys have got to stop this. And you're going to have to make sure that you allow the people who we talked about for your team, allow them to do the work so that you can grow your business and that you can get more. Now, I also have people who do, will get one contract and they're happy because it's a 5-year contract. It's paying them on a monthly basis because they're submitting their invoices correctly. And they never grow their business beyond that one. And then they call me and they're panicking because that 5-year contract is getting ready to end. And I'm saying, well, what have you been doing the rest of the time? But they've been working that one contract. And so what I share with you is do not stop. Stay hungry, stay hungry, stay hungry. Keep putting things in your pipeline. And how you do that is do not work in the contract. Sub it out, let your team handle it so that you can keep your pipeline full.
Excellent advice. I think even a couple of individuals are commenting that as well. And so Hyperion, she's somebody, this person has apologized for not being able to raise her hand, technically speaking. Don't worry about it. You know, this
That's
is
okay.
technology. Okay.
Yeah,
But
that's
she's
okay.
asking about a technical writer, and I'm saying, here's the expert. We have Tammy Bailey Fultz here with us. So she is the technical person we would send you to from Gov Directions. And so we're going to have her information available to you after the session, along with the comments here. And then, you know, some of the additional questions, I think we've covered some of the items here. When requirements are set forth in an RFP, when they actually have the deliverables there, do you think it's good
Mhm.
advice to go in and confirm that you're able to deliver each one of those one by one?
Yeah, I mean, you know, and everyone's going to develop your approach, but if it's your first time, certainly you want to go into making your checklist, and you want to be able to write down, remember when I talked about, you know, put your plan and do an outline. I don't know if that person was able to hear that portion of it, but on your plan and your outline, so that you're able to determine, can you meet the specifications? And you're not out of the running if you can't. Remember, you're we're all small business owners, myself included, but you have to think like a company. So meaning that, take yourself out of it, because so many times as small business owners, you're thinking me, me, me. I don't have, I can't do. That's not part of my vocabulary. So how you get there is that you have to involve others. You have to make sure that you bring to the table what you've now seen the RFP. It's in your hands. The ball is in your court. So if they're asking for a certain certification, bring someone to the table who has it. They're asking for a certain skill set, bring someone to the table who has it. You still have control of that contract. They're going to be a part of your team. That's the subcontractor. Okay.
And, you know, a couple more questions in there. And I did type in the website that I referred to as usaspending.gov. And, you know, another question here is, you know, I'm new, you know, but I have
Mhm.
experience as an independent contractor. How do I overcome that? What you got?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the first things I always start with, even my experienced business owners, I have everyone to do what I call is a performance work history, or tracking your performance to document. So that really helps, because it surprises people when you do your performance history, to put it on an Excel spreadsheet, and really it gives you a really good picture of, and it's something you should keep and continue to do. So it should not be a one-time thing that you say, oh, I'm doing it this one time because Tammy said to do. No, this is ongoing. So if you create a Google spreadsheet, Google Doc, or an Excel spreadsheet, so you're going to put on that spreadsheet at the top, you're going to put the name of the agency or the contractor, contract name. You're going to put the name of the agency. Now, you may not have any government experience. So if you're new, and say you're just transitioning from employee to now you're a small business owner, or you're still working, you can still utilize your skills, because that's actually what you're doing. You're doing this work all along. So you're still can use that information as part of your performance history, because your skills, your licenses, your degrees, your experience still counts. And putting that on a performance history so that you can see what are the areas that you're able to go after. Absolutely. But again, if you're new, how you overcome that is bringing people on board on your team.
That's good advice there. And another person asked this here about how many RFPs do you suggest? You know, we send a lot of RFPs to our customers, just so you know. We're the number one provider of business
Yeah.
leads for government in the United States. We every day about 5,000. How do I know which one to respond to? And when I have a lot of them.
Yeah. So here's the thing is, first you want to, of course, look at that due date. That's a driver. That's one of the indicators. Because if this is your first time, you really want to think about you need that 30 days or more to look at it. The first time when you're getting that RFP, you're getting it, again, you're looking at other emails, you're busy, you're at work, you have the kids at home, whatever. Typically I do my writing late at night. And I do it on the weekends because it's quieter. There's no phones, no interruptions. During the week, during the weekdays, just too busy, too much going on, having to respond to emails and texts and, just everything. So weekends works best. And during the quiet, at night, night is when I do the writing part of it. And that's what works for me.
And I'm going to add to this. I know we were running over our time with you. Are you okay just right now? Or are you?
I'm fine. I don't want.
We'll say how about 5 more minutes?
Yeah, that's fine,
Okay.
because I see a few people are dropping off because, I know that we've been on an hour, but I want to make sure that I'm kind of, and, again, this is broad, but I want for you all to be hopeful and to know that you can do it. Everyone has to start somewhere. And it's like, needing that first job where people say, I want to work. Remember being a younger kid and you said, I'll work, I want to work, I want to work. And the person always says, well, do you have experience? And so it's the same thing with the contract, they're looking for that experience and you're thinking, I just want to win my first contract. So it's being able to just write, be able to put your information on paper, because the document is what's going to speak for you. And so that is, when I talked about having someone else read, particularly someone who may be outside of your industry reading what you are submitting, that way the person can tell you, or they may have questions because they're going to be honest. They don't know your industry. So they're going to ask you some questions, and that can prompt you to write a better proposal as well, a response as well.
And so as we sort of start wrapping things up today, I will point out, our website at govschool.com, where you can come and you can actually see the sessions that we have. And we are so thankful that Tammy joined us today. But we have some more questions, such as how many of these should we see as a threshold where we're winning, and just general questions that we have in this business. We will continue to have these sessions. I will encourage you to check them out, and we will have this one in particular recorded, which we did, and we'll have it available after. It takes about an hour to get it all finalized. We'll try to send it out first thing tomorrow morning to those who have clicked through. So I actually forgot to put Eastern Standard Time on the invitation. Just a simple mistake. Don't do that when you're writing RFPs, by the way.
Right.
But in doing emails, sometimes it happens. But so some folks are just now coming home, so we're going to make that available to them as well. And then we have other sessions online, and so our GovSchool Focus session is where we actually really get into. This is a limited audience, though. Only 10 can participate, and you can come in. And in this one here, we actually walk through performance research in your response and an evaluation and award. And so, to add to some of the information that Tammy said earlier about, which ones do you really want to respond to? You really need to pinpoint your opportunity, I think. And when you're oriented to win it, as Tammy mentioned, you want to make sure you've got a good chance at it. So that's why, I have some parameters when I bid on a contract. This size organization, this many people, very specific, and I don't just bid on everything. Okay.
No, you definitely don't. I mean, it's a lot of time, and so you want to really look at, again, that's where that performance history, if you put your performance history on your spreadsheet, it serves as your indicator for what types of opportunities you should start at. It doesn't mean that you're going to stay there forever, but when you put your performance history together and on your spreadsheet and you see over and over and over again, I'll give an example. Young lady, she's a realtor. We put together her performance worksheet, and every opportunity for her, we're trying to get her over to the commercial side, but everything for her was residential. She has not sold any commercial properties yet. So what I looked for her, what I suggested for her was that she look at, there was HUD opportunities. And so that fit well for her, because up to this point, that's where she has her experience, her expertise in. And it's not to say, again, that she can't get to, and that's what we're working on now.
And so I would ask you one more time, Tammy, I don't know if you've got your email, you can type it in the chat box if you feel comfortable doing that. So some folks are asking for your contact through direct messaging to me. And so, I assume you're available for direct consultation and help. This is your business. So that's important. And, once again, one of the the best out there by far. And her organization is very well thought of, and we are so glad that she joined us today. With that said, I will, there we go. There's the information there. Okay.
Great.
And I'm getting all
Much.
kind of,
Thank you, Mark.
yes. And if you have comments, we really do enjoy comments. I'm getting notes saying this is a great session. I would point out that next Wednesday afternoon, we'll return to our entrepreneurial session. Professor Chris Hanks will be here to talk with our entrepreneurs, and we encourage you to join us. Most of our sessions are available like this, and you just need to come to this channel and come online, and then you're able to do that. But everybody's saying thank you, thank you, thank you. So I'm not sure if you're seeing all those chats, but we are very appreciative of what you share with us.
No, you guys, thank you. It's never enough time. And, want to add, again, given kind of broad, but just be encouraged and just know, but the best advice I can give all of you, just submit regardless, no matter what. Just make sure, of course, it's timely, because if you a second late, you're second late, but definitely make sure that you submit. You're better off submitting than not.
I echo that. I just can't echo it enough, in fact. So with that said, I thank you all for joining us today, and we'll leave you. And as you are headed out, we'll have music playing until everybody's exiting. So thank you once again for joining today, and we'll see you at our next session.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
I don't hear any music, Mark.
I'm trying to get it going. I like to leave you in the zone. I closed it because somebody was hearing it, I think, earlier. So there we go. Yeah, it's not playing. So it was a well thought out idea there. How about that? Have a great afternoon and a great Wednesday.
Yes, you do the same.
There we go.
Oh, yeah.
So when I heard this band at the inauguration, I thought this is a great band. They're out of Austin, Texas. So I listen to them frequently now.
Nice. Nice.
But I have to stop, or I'll get accused of violating copyright. I've got to stop the recording right here.
Oh, yeah.